They say college is where you figure out who you are, what you want, and the kind of life you're meant to chase. At least that's what I told myself when I signed the lease for a weathered beachside cottage in Seaside, Oregon for my senior year. My name's Aiden Reese. I'm 24, a marketing major, and if you asked anyone back home in Idaho, they'd paint the same picture. Aiden's the guy who's got it together. Plays soccer on weekends, flirts with girls at parties, drinks too much iced coffee, predictable, straight, reliable. For most of my life, I bought into that story. Then I met my new roommate, Elliot Vaughn. The cottage was a steal, peeling blue paint, creaky floorboards, and windows that rattled when the ocean wind howled. I figured my roommate would be some burnout surfer who'd leave sand everywhere and blast reggae at 3 a.m. But when Elliot opened the door, I stopped dead in my tracks. He was tall, wiry, with sun-bleached curls that looked like they'd been tousled by the sea itself. His green eyes sparkled with a mix of mischief and warmth, and his smile, crooked, effortless, hit me like a wave I wasn't ready for. "Hey, you must be Aiden," he said, his voice low and smooth, like driftwood polished by years of tides. He offered his hand, and when I shook it, my heart did a weird stutter. I chalked it up to nerves. New place, new person, no big deal. At first, it was just roommate logistics, splitting rent, arguing over who forgot to take out the trash, figuring out how to share a bathroom with one sink. Elliot was a photography major, and his side of the cottage was a chaotic shrine to his craft. Tripods leaning in corners, Polaroids pinned to a corkboard, fairy lights strung above a thrift store couch that smelled faintly of salt and cedar. My side was bare, just a soccer ball, a stack of textbooks, and a single framed photo of my high school team. "You're really gonna live like a monk?" Elliot teased one night, tossing me a seashell to spruce things up. I laughed, but I kept the shell on my desk. It was small, imperfect, but it felt like a piece of the place. That was Elliot's magic. He nudged you toward life without ever pushing. Week 1. Finding Rhythm. The first week was a dance of awkward politeness. We mapped out fridge space. His almond milk took up half a shelf, took turns buying groceries, and bickered over the thermostat. Elliot was meticulous but chill, always humming some indie song while editing photos late into the night. I'd come back from soccer practice, sweaty and starving, and find him in the kitchen, attempting something ambitious like homemade pho. "Made too much," he'd say, sliding a bowl my way. "You in?" Our first real connection happened on a foggy Friday. I'd just gotten smoked in practice, my ego bruised, and I trudged into the cottage ready to collapse. Elliot was at the stove stirring a pot of chili that smelled like heaven. "Rough day?" he asked, not looking up. "You could say that," I muttered, dropping my bag. He handed me a beer from the fridge. "Sit. Eat. Misery loves company." We ate on the back porch, the ocean roaring in the distance, trading stories about coaches, small-town gossip, and the professors who'd already assigned 20-page papers. I don't remember every word, but I remember the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way the porch light caught the gold in his curls. I looked away fast, confused by the warmth spreading in my chest. A week later, he roped me into a surf session at dawn. I was terrible, wiped out in seconds, swallowed by freezing waves, but Elliot was patient, shouting tips from his board. When I finally caught a wave, he whooped like I'd won the Olympics. Back on shore, shivering and laughing, he tossed me a towel. "Not bad for a landlocked Idaho boy," he grinned. I shoved him playfully, but my hand lingered on his shoulder a second too long. I told myself it was nothing. The slow unraveling, it started with small moments I couldn't explain. The way Elliot's voice softened when he talked about his photos. The way he'd stretch out on the couch, one arm behind his head, his shirt riding up just enough to show a sliver of tanned skin. I'd catch myself staring, then snap my eyes to my phone, my heart racing like I'd been caught stealing. I was straight. That was the rule. The story. Girls were my thing. Messy breakups, flirty texts, the whole deal. So why was I noticing the way Elliot's fingers traced the rim of his coffee mug? Why did I feel a jolt when our knees brushed under the table? One night we stayed up until 3 a.m. on the porch, wrapped in blankets, the air thick with salt and pine. The conversation turned personal. I vented about my dad's expectations. Get a corporate job, marry a nice girl, settle down. Feels like I'm auditioning for someone else's life, I admitted. Elliot listened, his gaze steady. You ever think about writing your own script? He asked. I laughed it off. What, like run away and join a band? He smiled, but his eyes were serious. Or just let yourself want what you want. No apologies, I didn't sleep that night. His words looped in my head, tangled with the memory of his voice, low and certain. I told myself he was just being Elliot, philosophical, artsy, free, but something in me stirred, like a tide pulling at something buried deep, voice low and certain. I told myself he was just being Elliot, philosophical, artsy, free, but something in me stirred, like a tide pulling at something buried deep. The question. The first crack in my carefully built wall came on a stormy night in October. The power went out, plunging the cottage into darkness. Rain lashed the windows, and the wind howled like it wanted in. Elliot lit candles, their glow painting the room in amber. He pulled out a bottle of cheap bourbon from a cupboard. Storm survival kit, he declared, pouring us each a glass. We sat on the floor, backs against the couch, the bourbon burning my throat. The silence was heavy, intimate. Then Elliot spoke, his voice barely above the rain.
Aiden, you ever think about guys?
My glass froze halfway to my lips. My pulse hammered. What? I croaked. He shrugged, eyes on his drink. Just curious. Like, ever wonder what it'd be like to go there? I laughed, too loud, too sharp. Nah, man. I'm straight. The words felt like armor, but they cracked the second they left my mouth. He nodded, unfazed. Cool. Just asking. But his eyes held mine a beat too long, and I felt exposed, like he'd seen the lie I wasn't ready to admit. That night I lay in bed, the storm raging outside, my mind louder. Why did he ask? Did he know something? And why did I feel a pang of regret for shutting him down? I couldn't be, could I? The party, the shift was subtle but relentless. I started noticing everything about Elliot. The way he bit his lip when he was focused. The way he'd hum while cooking, oblivious to the world. The way his laugh made the cottage feel less empty. I hated myself for it. I was Aiden Reese, soccer guy, ladies' man, the guy who had it figured out. But every glance at Elliot chipped away at that story. A month later, I went to a party I didn't want to attend. My friends dragged me to a crowded beach house, all thumping bass and spilled vodka. I drank too much, danced with a girl whose name I forgot, and felt nothing but hollow. By midnight, I was done. I stumbled back to the cottage, the cold ocean air sobering me up. I expected Elliot to be asleep. Instead, he was on the couch, laptop glowing, editing photos with headphones around his neck. Early exit? He asked, smirking. Not my vibe tonight, I mumbled, collapsing beside him. The couch dipped, pulling us closer. You're editing at 1 a.m.? I asked. Deadlines don't sleep, he said, but his grin was tired. We bantered, the bourbon from earlier loosening my tongue. You ever feel like you're faking it? I blurted. Like everyone's watching, waiting for you to be someone you're not? Elliot closed his laptop, turning to face me. His eyes were soft but piercing, like he could see every crack in my facade. Every day, he said quietly. But you don't have to play the part, Aiden. You can just be. My breath hitched. The air between us was electric, heavy with something unspoken. For a moment, I thought he might lean in. My heart pounded, want and fear colliding. But he didn't. He just smiled, small and knowing, and the moment slipped away. I went to bed with his words burning in my chest. You can just be. The second storm winter brought another storm, fiercer than the first. The power flickered out again, and we fell into the same ritual. Candles, bourbon, the couch. The cottage felt like a world apart, just us and the storm. We talked about everything and nothing. My fears about graduation, his dreams of traveling, photographing places no one bothered to see. Then, out of nowhere, he said, You look at me differently lately. I froze, my glass trembling in my hand. What do you mean? My voice was barely a whisper. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his gaze unwavering. You know what I mean. The candlelight flickered, casting shadows across his face. My mouth went dry. I don't know what's going on with me, I admitted, the words scraping out like gravel. I'm supposed to be, the guy everyone thinks I am, but when I'm around you, I don't know who I am anymore. Elliot didn't laugh or flinch. He just nodded like he'd been waiting for this. You don't have to have it figured out, he said. But you don't have to hide either. Not from me. His hand brushed mine on the couch, deliberate but gentle. My skin burned where he touched me. I didn't pull away, the edge of something new. The weeks that followed were a blur of confusion and clarity. I still went to parties, still texted girls, still played the part. But it felt like a costume, one that didn't fit anymore. Elliot never pushed, never demanded answers. He was just there, cooking breakfast on Sundays, dragging me to obscure art house films, leaving seashells on my desk when I had a bad day. And every moment with him felt like a question I wasn't ready to answer. One night in December, we walked the beach at low tide, the moon painting the waves silver. The air was cold, our breath visible. You ever gonna tell me what's going on in that head of yours? Elliot asked, kicking a pebble. I stopped walking, my heart in my throat. I'm scared, I said, the words raw. Scared of what it means. Scared of what people will think. Scared of wanting this. He turned to me, his eyes soft but steady. Wanting what? My voice shook. You. The word hung between us, fragile and huge. He didn't smile or rush to fill the silence. He just stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. I'm right here, he said. No pressure, no rules. Just us. I didn't kiss him that night. I wasn't ready. But I felt the tide shift, pulling me toward something I couldn't name but couldn't ignore. For the first time, I let myself wonder what it would be like to stop running from the truth. Epilogue. A new story. By spring, the cottage was home in a way I never expected. My side had Polaroids now, Elliot's doing, snaps of us laughing, surfing, living. I still didn't have all the answers. I still flinched when my old friends made jokes I used to laugh at. But I was starting to write a new story, one where I didn't have to be the guy everyone expected, one where I could look at Elliot, really look at him, and not look away. College wasn't just about discovering who I was. It was about meeting someone who saw me, all of me, and made me brave enough to see myself. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, the kind of steady Austin downpour that turned the streets into mirrors and made every headlight look like a memory. I was in the kitchen, wiping down the counter for the 3rd time, when I heard the front door open and close with the soft finality of someone who no longer bothered to announce himself. Ethan Dock, 22 now. Taller than me by an inch, he liked to remind me about, and carrying the kind of quiet that used to belong to his mother. Sarah had been gone 4 years. 4 years, 2 months, 11 days, if anyone was counting, and the house still hadn't figured out how to fill the space she left. He dropped his keys in the bowl by the door, the clink too loud in the stillness. I didn't turn around. Long shift? I asked. Long enough. His voice was low, rough around the edges like he'd been smoking again. I didn't ask. I heard him move through the living room, the familiar creak of the 3rd stair as he went up. Then nothing. The rain kept falling. That night I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan spun lazy circles above me, pushing warm air around like it was trying to stir something that had already settled. I kept seeing Sarah in the dark, her laugh when Ethan tried to teach her to skateboard at 14, the way she'd lean into me on the porch swing, barefoot and humming. I kept seeing Ethan, too, the way he'd stopped looking me in the eye after the funeral, like if he did, he'd see her in my face and break all over again. I must have dozed off, because the knock came soft but sharp, pulling me up like a hook through the ribs. Dad? Ethan's voice, barely above the rain. I sat up, rubbed my face. Yeah, come in. The door opened slow. He stood in the hallway light, wearing an old Longhorns t-shirt and sweatpants, hair damp from the shower. He looked younger than 22. Looked like the kid who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during thunderstorms. Can't sleep? I asked. He shook his head. Stepped inside, closed the door behind him. Didn't sit, just stood there, hands in his pockets, staring at the floor like it might open up and swallow him. I keep thinking about her, he said finally, like she's in the walls or something. I walk past her studio and I swear I can smell the turpentine. I open the fridge and expect to see her stupid oat milk with the cartoon cow. His voice cracked on the last word. I swallowed hard. I know, I said. I do too. He looked up then. His eyes, Sarah's eyes, green and sharp, were red-rimmed. I don't know how to do this without her. I wanted to say something wise. Something a father says when his son is drowning in front of him, but all I had was the truth. Me neither. He crossed the room in 3 steps and sat on the edge of my bed, shoulders curled in like he was trying to make himself smaller. I reached out, hesitated, then rested my hand on his back. He didn't flinch. We stayed like that for a long time. The rain softened against the windows. His breathing evened out. I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, I'm scared I'm forgetting her voice. I closed my eyes. You're not. How do you know? Because every time you laugh, I hear her. He made a sound, half sob, half laugh, and leaned into me. I wrapped my arm around him, careful, like he might shatter. He didn't. He just let his head rest against my shoulder, the way he used to when he was 8 and the world was too big. I miss you too, he whispered, even when you're right here. The words hit harder than the grief. I hadn't realized how far apart we'd drifted until he said it out loud. I'm here, I said. I'm not going anywhere, he nodded against my shirt. We didn't move for a long time. The next morning, he was already in the kitchen when I came down. 2 mugs on the counter. Coffee brewed. He didn't look up when I walked in, just slid one toward me. Figured you'd need this, he said. I took it. Our fingers brushed. Neither of us pulled away. We drank in silence. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean. The days after that were careful, like we were both learning how to walk again. He started coming home earlier. I started leaving the garage light on. We didn't talk about it, but we started eating dinner together. Real dinners, not takeout in front of the TV. He cooked one night. Burned the chicken. Laughed about it. I laughed too. It felt like breathing after holding your breath for years. But the nights were harder. He'd knock sometimes. Always late, always the same soft rap, like he was afraid to wake me even though he knew I wasn't sleeping. One night, he came in and didn't say anything. Just climbed into the bed like he used to when he had nightmares. I shifted over without thinking. He curled up, facing away from me, but close enough that I could feel the heat of him. I keep dreaming she's calling me, he said into the dark. But when I turn around, she's not there. I didn't know what to say, so I just reached out and rested my hand on his arm. He didn't move away. It wasn't always heavy. Some nights we watched old westerns and argued over whether John Wayne was overrated. He started fixing things around the house, the leaky faucet in the bathroom, the loose hinge on the back door. I'd find him in the garage, sleeves rolled up, grease on his hands, humming under his breath. Sarah's humming. One afternoon, I came home to find him in her studio. The door had been closed since the funeral. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by canvases turned to the wall. He looked up when I stepped in. I didn't touch anything, he said quickly. Just wanted to see. I nodded. Sat down across from him. The air smelled like dust and linseed oil. She was working on this one, he said, turning a canvas around. It was half finished, a storm over the hill country, blues and grays bleeding into each other. She hated it, I said. Said the clouds looked like cotton balls. He smiled. A real one. She always said that about clouds. We sat there until the light shifted. Neither of us cried, but the closeness started to feel different. It was small things. The way he'd linger in the kitchen after dinner, drying dishes I'd already dried. The way he'd fall asleep on the couch during movies and I'd cover him with the blanket Sarah used to steal from me. The way his hand would brush mine when we passed in the hallway. And neither of us moved fast enough to pretend it was an accident. I told myself it was grief. Proximity. 2 people who'd lost the same person. clinging to the only thing left. But then came the night everything tilted. I'd gone to bed early, bone tired from a 12-hour shift. The house was quiet. I was half dreaming when the knock came, soft, hesitant. "Dad?" I sat up. "Ethan?" He opened the door, stood there in the dim light from the hall, barefoot, wearing the same t-shirt he'd had on for 2 days. His eyes were wide, awake. "I can't—" He stopped, swallowed. "I can't be in my room tonight." I pulled back the covers without thinking. "Come here." He crossed the room like he was walking through water. Slid in beside me. The bed dipped. He smelled like soap and the faint trace of the cedar candle Sarah used to burn. For a long time, we didn't speak. Just lay there, inches apart, listening to the house settle. Then he turned toward me. Slowly, carefully. Like he was testing the air. "Dad," he whispered. I don't know what I'm doing. I should have asked what he meant. Should have sat up, turned on the light, drawn the line clear and sharp. But I didn't, because I knew. I knew the way his breath hitched when our knees touched. The way his hand found mine under the covers, fingers curling like he was afraid I'd pull away. "I didn't, Ethan," I said. My voice sounded far away. "We don't have to—" "I know," he said. I don't want to be alone tonight." So I let him stay. Let him press closer until his forehead rested against my collarbone. Let his hand stay in mine. We didn't cross any lines. Not really. But the line blurred all the same. The next morning, he was gone before I woke up. The sheets were cold. I lay there staring at the ceiling, heart pounding like I'd run miles. He didn't come down for breakfast. I heard the shower run, heard the front door close. I didn't see him until that night. He walked in carrying pizza, acting like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't lain awake in the dark, breathing the same air, holding on like we were the last 2 people on Earth. "Hey," he said, setting the box on the counter. "Figured we could use real food," I nodded. Couldn't look at him. We ate in silence. The TV played some game show neither of us watched. Finally, he said, "About last night." "We don't have to talk about it," I cut in. Too fast, he looked at me. Really looked. Okay, but we did. Eventually, it came in pieces. Over weeks. Late nights on the porch, beers sweating in our hands. Mornings in the kitchen, coffee cooling between us. He told me about the dreams. How sometimes he woke up reaching for her, only to find me instead. How guilty it made him feel. How much he hated himself for wanting the comfort anyway. I told him about the way I'd started noticing things. The way his laugh cracked open something in my chest. The way I'd catch myself watching him when he wasn't looking. How I'd started sleeping better when he was in the room. We didn't call it anything. Didn't dare, but we stopped pretending. He started leaving his door open at night. I started leaving mine. Some nights he'd wander in, wordless, and crawl into bed like it was the most natural thing in the world. Some nights I'd find him on the couch and carry the blanket over, tuck it around him, let my hand linger on his shoulder. We never kissed. Never touched beyond the careful boundaries of comfort. But the air between us hummed with it, the unspoken, the unnameable. One Saturday, the power went out. Storm rolled in fast, lightning cracking the sky open. We lit candles. Found the old Scrabble board in the hall closet. Played by One Saturday, the power went out. Storm rolled in fast, lightning cracking the sky open. We lit candles. Found the old Scrabble board in the hall closet. Played by flickering light, laughing when the tiles spelled nonsense. When the game ended, he looked at me across the coffee table. "I'm not ready to lose you too," he said. "You won't," I said. He nodded. Then quiet. "Can I sleep in your room tonight?" The thunder— "Yeah," I said. Of course. That night he didn't hesitate. Slid in beside me like he belonged there. We lay on our backs, staring at the ceiling, the storm raging outside. After a while he rolled toward me. Rested his head on my chest. I froze. Then wrapped my arm around him. His voice was barely a breath. "Is this okay?" I swallowed. Yeah, we stayed like that until morning. Summer came. The grief didn't leave, it just changed shape. Became something we carried together instead of apart. He started painting again. Took over Sarah's studio. I'd find him there at 2 a.m., covered in blues and greens, music low. I'd bring him coffee. Sit on the floor and watch. One night he showed me a canvas. Just two figures on a porch swing, backs to the viewer, heads tilted together. The sky behind them was the color of a healing bruise. "That's us," he said. I nodded, couldn't speak. He hung it in the living room. Right above the couch where we'd spent so many nights not talking. We never told anyone. Didn't need to. The world outside kept spinning. Work, friends, the slow grind of days. But inside the house, something had settled. Some nights he still came to my room. Some nights I went to his. We'd fall asleep tangled in each other. Not lovers, not quite father and son anymore either. Just two people who'd lost everything and found a way to hold on. The rain still falls sometimes. When it does, we sit on the porch and listen. He leans into me. I rest my chin on his head. We don't talk about what it means. We don't have to.